He died to the strongest isekai boss of all time, Truck-kun, and woke up in another world with broken space magic. And instead of becoming a noble hero or chosen one, he set a far more important goal: farm aura and act like a mysterious, overpowered stranger. But the moment he tries to start his wizard arc, he accidentally saves the strongest all-female party in the country. Now they're hunting him down, while he just wants to roleplay as a chill background legend. Can a guy with terrifying powers remain anonymous? Let's find out. The story begins in the guild, where the girl loudly said that she would ask again. "Are you sure that Mage isn't here? He wears a black robe." The worker said in a worried voice that she was absolutely sure of it. "There is no such mage in their guild. She was probably mistaken." She got angry because of this and asked loudly, "She wants to say that she has gone crazy, right?" She apologized. This attracted the attention of the people sitting nearby, and they asked what the noise was. They looked at the two girls and asked what the White Blades members were doing here. It seemed like they were in some kind of trouble. A strong monster appeared, and they barely dealt with it, but there was no need to worry. Some mysterious mage appeared and defeated the monsters with ease. Who was it? He left immediately. They didn't even have time to question him. What kind of nonsense is this? He himself doesn't believe it. But if it's true, then it means he saved them. The two men began to imagine the girls offering them gratitude for saving them, and said with embarrassment that this could definitely happen. How jealous he was. Their attention was drawn to a dark-haired guy who began to laugh, and one of them asked if he had just laughed at them. The guy denied it, and thought that of course he found it funny, because Higashiyama Tori, was the mysterious magician they were talking about. How glad he was to be reincarnated in this world. He couldn't believe that everyone was talking about him. Everyone was talking about him, but he hid his identity. He had always dreamed of being the main character who pretended to be an ordinary person. He had always wanted to be a mysterious hero. He had dreamed of it all his life. However, he lacked confidence. For 25 years, he had lived a quiet and peaceful life, but one day, he noticed a child running along the road and a truck was driving towards him. He jumped to save the child and thought that it was probably already clear what happened after that. He found himself in a bright room where a guy with a cheerful look said that welcome to the afterlife. He is something like a god. He asks for forgiveness. He probably doesn't understand anything. He will explain everything. He died trying to save a child. He is in despair, right? He was about to say something, but didn't have time because he asked loudly what happened to the child. He is alive and not hurt, right? God said that he was not hurt at all. He was very happy to hear this, and said that it would be even better if he survived so that he could say that he was just passing by and coolly walk off into the sunset. Then at home, with a cold drink in his hands, he watched the news to himself. God said with a smile that it was brilliant. He thought out the plan from start to finish, right? He was a little embarrassed by this and said that he asks you not to laugh at him. Isn't being a mysterious hero every man's dream? God said that he was not laughing at him at all. On the contrary, he liked his idea. When he checked the Chronicles of Fate, he should have hesitated and the child was destined to die. However, he still changed fate itself and saved the child. It's simply amazing. Since he was able to change fate, he has a reward for him. He will fulfill his sweet and small wish. He was surprised by this and asked, why is he making fun of his wish? Besides, what does that even mean? He laughed and said that now he will say the most interesting thing. Doesn't he want to be reborn in another world? Thus, at the age of 25, he found himself in another world. He opened the bag he was carrying and said that first he needs to assess the situation. Amazing, he has such cool clothes. A sword, books, this healing potion, and this is a sleeping bag, right? He thought that God gave him something to start with, a complete set of equipment and all the necessary knowledge about this world. He can read and write the language of this world. In addition, he knows basic history and geography. He has all the necessary information for survival. Besides, he received 3 random events. He can get so-called cheat abilities. First, his talent for swordsmanship is average. He can become a swordsman who will be slightly better than an ordinary swordsman if he tries. Second, his talent for elemental magic is garbage. Of course, he understands everything, but to call it garbage so bluntly. The last and most important thing he received is spatial magic for such beginners that even a monkey would understand it. Spatial magic is ultimate. It seems that this has nothing to do with elemental magic. This is ancient magic that has almost been forgotten. Apparently one of the basic spells of spatial magic. It is expansion. Even an ordinary backpack like this will become roomy thanks to expansion. It creates something like a spatial pocket. The second spell is teleportation. He can teleport to any place he sees or has been to before. After the teleportation, MC found himself on a high cliff, looked around and said with surprise that this is the world he was sent to. He can't believe that he will be able to live however he wants in this world. He thought that maybe in this world, if he masters his abilities, he will be able to stand out and still remain anonymous. Maybe he will be someone like a mysterious mage. He raised his hands above his head and happily said that this is so cool, he can't wait for it. First, he needs to find a city. He will gather information there. He heard a loud female scream, looked to the side and asked, "What is going on?" Are the locals being attacked by a huge lizard? From far away, he can't really see it. He thought that this is a real fantasy world with monsters, swords, and magic. This is an ideal situation, like a tutorial in a game, right? The girls who encountered the huge monster said that she never thought they would encounter such a monster. They were very unlucky. That's not true. They were careless. They were not prepared for the attack from underground, thanks to Marin's detection magic. At least none of them died. They need to retreat. She will cover, and she must carry everyone out of here. No way she will be the one covering them. However, it is her duty as a leader. Does she even understand what situation they are in? Does she seriously think she can hold out with one arm? The wounded girl still agreed, started to run, and said that she must promise that she will return alive. The girl with the spear remained standing and loudly said that she did not plan to die. Aisha ran up to the girl, who was unconscious, sitting by a tree called Marin, and said that Lilitan will cover them. They need to get out of here. She pointed her spear at the huge dragon with a smile and said that he should try to attack. Her spear will once again live up to its name of Dragon Slayer. He will be her prey. She jumped, swung her spear, and screamed loudly before attacking. She delivered a strong blow, but could not even pierce the scales of this monster. She immediately jumped back a few meters and said with a smile that it was to be expected. He was incredibly durable. In that case, she would just aim for the eyes. Aisha watched this battle and loudly called her name. Thanks to this, Lilitan managed to react to the dragon's tail attack, blocked, but the blow was too strong and she was thrown into the ground. Aisha was very worried about this and loudly called her name. She noticed that the dragon was heading towards her and with a very frightened face said that she had to do something. She thought, however, what could she even do in such a state? She was still conscious after the monster's attack. With the last of her strength, she called out her name and said that she must escape quickly. She looked at the wounded members of her squad, clutched her broken sword in her hand, and thought that she must try. They will get out of here alive. She is the leader of the White Blades and an aristocrat from the garden house. She said with a serious expression that her comrades would not die, even if she had to. The monster opened its mouth and began to concentrate energy, and she saw it and thought that it was gathering mana. Was it really using the dragon's breath? She said loudly in a serious tone that even so, she would not allow it to touch them with a finger. The monster released a powerful stream of energy, but Tori used the isolation skill and stopped this attack right in front of her. She noticed him when he said that there was no need to rush to meet death. Aisha, with a shocked expression, asked who he was. He turned away and quietly asked, "Wasn't that too pathetic?" She looked at him and wondered who he even was and what he did. He blocked the dragon's breath alone? It was simply impossible. She was about to ask something, but he beat her to it and asked. She wondered what he did. The dragon began to roar loudly and quickly flew towards him. She worriedly warned him of the danger, and he raised his hand and said that everything was so good. But he was ruining everything for him. He waved his hand and used the severance skill. With this magic, he easily cut off the monster's head with one spell and said with a smirk that he shouldn't interfere. She looked at him in surprise and asked, "Who the hell is he?" Marin came to her senses and thought that this mana seemed familiar to her. Had she forgotten something? After that, she lost consciousness again, and Aisha came up to him and said that she was very grateful for him saving them. He said that there was no need to thank him for that. She asked if she could find out who he was. Maybe he was an adventurer from another city? He handed her a bottle and said that it did not matter. She should take it. She asked loudly in surprise, was this really a healing potion? Was he really giving her something so valuable? He agreed, and she loudly thanked him and said that now she would be able to provide first aid to her comrades. How could she repay him? The protagonist said that he did not need gratitude. She was about to object, but he said that he might not have made it in time if she had not delayed the monster, risking her life. Instead of thanking him, she should help her comrades. She agreed and said that he was completely right about that. She ran to the wounded and said that he should wait a little. He thought with a satisfied look how cool he was. A hero who came when there was no hope left and hid his identity. This was it. This was what he dreamed of. His dream had finally come true. He told her to help his comrades because he didn't need gratitude. He used the teleport skill and thought that instead they should try and spread rumors about him. After that, he came to the guild, where people asked if they had heard of the spatial mage. That's right, the hero who single-handedly killed a dragon. He killed a monster that even White Blades couldn't cope with? Who the hell is he? MC approached the employee, and she said that he was now a registered adventurer. She wished him, a new adventurer, good luck in his new job. He agreed with a very happy smile, and she asked what happened to him. Did something good happen? He said that he was just thinking about the mysterious mage who recently showed up. She said with a slightly worried look that it wasn't just the guild that was going crazy, but the whole country as well. They were trying to find him all over the country. He was worried about this and said that he thought people would be happy about the appearance of a new hero. She said loudly that they shouldn't take him so lightly. He defeated the legendary dragon, a monster that the White Blades couldn't defeat. This is already amazing, and they don't even know who he is. He was very worried about this and wondered, was it the legendary dragon? Wait, he thought it was just a huge lizard. He asked in an excited voice, By the way, are the white blades really that amazing? She said loudly that they are more than just amazing. Since he asks, she will tell you everything. Archmage, who has mastered the 3 elements, the sorceress Marin. Lilitan, a mighty spear, a former mercenary with immense strength. Scout and ambush master Saran, monster hunter. Win, the fire fairy, is the youngest member of this team and the sorceress's apprentice. Their leader, the genius swordswoman, Aisha Garden, the slashing princess. 2 of them are 6-star adventurers, which is the maximum rank. They are the strongest group not only here, but in the entire country. Such white blades. Did he understand everything now? He was even more surprised by what he heard and thought. Did he save such amazing people? It was a legendary dragon, and now they are looking for him all over the country? Of course, he is glad that he attracted so much attention. But this is too much attention. This is a nightmare. He was actually planning to enjoy life. This is a completely different level. Why did it all start so abruptly? He just wanted a quiet life in another world. But what should he do now? The worker called Tori and asked if he was okay. He suddenly turned pale. He said with a worried look that she shouldn't worry. A wave of despair just washed over him. She was surprised and said loudly that this was definitely exciting. After some time, Lilitan walked down the street and asked if they would look for this mysterious mage again. Aisha agreed and said that she couldn't believe that he left without allowing himself to be thanked. She was ready for anything. They would find him no matter what. She asked with a smirk, how was she going to thank him? Want to spend the night with him? She was indignant at these words and said loudly that she shouldn't laugh at her. Later, the leader of the Adventurers Guild of the city of Boris, Xeris, asked if they understood everything. Dragons are one of the most dangerous and terrifying monsters. Even 6-star adventurers will have a hard time handling them. A truly mythological creature, but this mage killed such a monster with ease alone. This is the first time he hears that such a thing is actually possible, unless he's read about it in books. Aisha gave her name and said that she, the leader of the White Blades, swears on her name that this is all the truth. He said he didn't say she was lying. However, who is this mage anyway? Everything is fine if he is their ally, but what if he is an enemy? This is the problem of the entire state. She said that she does not know who he is. However, she does not think he is a bad person. 2 weeks later, in the Forest of No Return, the protagonist said that he had found the goblins for his quest. As a bonus, there are also rabid boars here. He said with a wide smile that this is simply perfect. He, a spatial mage, will test his skills on them. A group of monsters ran towards him. He calmly stood in place and said that they were so impatient. He waved his hand and used the isolation skill. He created several barriers, which they all crashed into. He looked at this with a smile and said that the casting speed, distance, and power are at the right level. It's simply amazing. He can even create multiple barriers at once. He waved his hand and said that he was grateful to them for being his training targets. He used the slash skill on all the monsters and said that this spell allows him to separate any space, a spell that is too imbalanced. However, the more opponents he has, the more he has to concentrate. He must practice more. To become the strongest, talent alone will not be enough. After that, in the city of Boris, he came to the guild. An administrator named Eliza saw him and said that he was welcome. He called her by name and asked if she could confirm the completed quest. He put goblin ears on the table, and she said that there were also carcasses of rabid boars. Should he turn them into meat, like last time? He successfully completed the quest, and she was grateful for his hard work. He thought that he was too worried because he stood out more than he planned. However, now he is calmly completing quests and living without any problems in his head. She asked with a friendly expression, "He's doing great, right? He just registered recently, but he has already become a 2-star adventurer." He thanked her and thought with a slightly nervous smile that he understood that this wouldn't be achieved overnight, but he needed to raise his rank as quickly as possible to earn a living. The adventurers nearby looked at him with smirks and said that this old man would definitely not go further than 2 stars. Old people don't go far at all. Eliza said with displeasure that they should stop. It's too rude. The adventurer said with a smirk that, however, it's true. He could have become an adventurer when he was 15 years old. But now he's already 25. How long does he have left? A retired newbie? MC was very angry because of his words and thought that he was only 25 years old. Very young. She leaned towards him and told him that he shouldn't let those words get to him. He said that everything was fine, but he didn't understand what he had done to them. She said they were insecure and afraid that the newcomer would surpass them all. Now he had to look at the rabid boars. Even 3-star parties could barely handle them, and he was doing it alone. He asked if she thought he was attracting unnecessary attention. He thought that he hunted them because they were more expensive than goblins. Had he gotten too carried away? She said that she wouldn't have said that. But if he had killed more than one on his own, people would be surprised. He began to get even more nervous and thought that it was close. It was good that he had decided to bring only one. He needed to think more carefully about every step. Otherwise his secret as a mysterious mage would be revealed. She noticed his uneasiness and asked if something was wrong. He denied it and looked very worried, saying he was just thinking about his life. He was afraid his heart would stop. Eliza said loudly that something was definitely bothering him. He said it was fine, that this happened to him often. She said loudly, worried, that everything was definitely not normal. Marin looked at him, called him a retired newbie, and asked if he could somehow be connected to this mysterious mage. Tori noticed that there was a photo of him on the wall, and an ad that said that if anyone saw this man, they should contact the guild or the White Blades. The features, dark hair, and black robes meant it was most likely a man. He looked at it and thought that he needed to be even more careful. A merchant called him and asked if he wanted to buy a magic lamp. It was a tool that used fire mana to create light. It was the highest quality material and would glow for a long time. What did he think about it? He looked at it thoughtfully and said that he could use fire magic, but that would be a good option too. The merchant laughed and said that he would even give him a discount. Marin approached them, asked to intervene, and said that this stone was of the worst quality. He turned to her and asked who she was. She introduced herself as a magician, after which they walked further down the street. He thanked her and said that he was very poorly versed in such things. She said that everything was fine. She was just passing by and decided to help. He remembered something and said that they had never introduced themselves to each other. He said his name and said that he was glad to meet her. She said her name, reciprocated, and he thought he had heard that name somewhere before. Maybe he was just making it up. He asked if there was any way he could thank her, maybe treat her to dinner. She agreed to it and said that she wouldn't mind having a snack. He said with a happy smile that that was great. Then he asked for some recommendations. They came to a bakery where they saw different pastries, and he asked what she would choose. She thought it over, turned around, and said that she had decided and wanted it all. He asked her to wait and asked if she seriously didn't understand what the problem was. She got a little upset about it and said that she was to have half. The protagonist refused her and said that didn't solve the problem. He pointed to another counter and asked if she would like something fried from there. It looks tastier, right? She said that he didn't understand. This food may be small, but it has the perfect crispy consistency. It doesn't look like that from the outside, but inside there is very juicy fruit. Each bun had a different fruit in it, meaning each one had its own unique flavor. She was about to continue telling the story, but he interrupted her and said he realized that she really liked it. After that, he bought her a bunch of food, which she started eating and said that it was so delicious. He said with a confused smile that she shouldn't talk while she was eating. He took a deep breath and thought that in the end, he spent a lot of money and would have to take more quests. She ate everything he bought very quickly and said that it was perfect. He was shocked by this and wondered, is this even possible? She devoured everything in a matter of seconds. Marin said that tasty food should be eaten quickly. A snack is always good. He came to terms with what happened and said that he was glad to hear it. She thanked him and said that he was a good person. MC thought that she probably would have climbed into the kidnapper's van for a candy. She asked, by the way, why does a swordsman need a magic tool at all? He was confused by this question and asked, is she talking about that lamp? She said that only mages can use something like that. He asked, but some swordsmen have mana, right? She said that mana and magical power are different things. Mana is magical power that has already taken the desired form. It's like ingredients and a finished dish. So she wondered why he needed a magic tool. He said that it was simple. He can use magic, but he's not very good at it. However, with a lamp, he could probably handle it. He created a very small flame on the edge of his finger, and her attention was drawn to his mana. She took out a chain with a crystal and asked if he could put his mana in it. He looked at it and asked what kind of black crystal it was, and why she needed it. She said that he just had to do it. He did it. She noticed the energy filling the crystal and asked, can he use amazing magic, right? He didn't understand this and she asked, for example, something that can defeat the Earth Dragon? He was shocked by this and asked, is she talking about the same mage who saved the White Blades squad? She agreed, and he wondered why. She's a simple girl. Where did he go wrong? He should calm down. They haven't exposed him yet. However, what if she finds out who he is? What will happen to him? Will they arrest him? He pretended not to understand her and said that he can't do anything like that. If he could, would he swing a sword? Marin said that this stone reacts differently depending on the element of the mage, and she had never seen such a color. It looks the same as hers. She can use 3 elements at once. That's why it shimmered with 3 colors. He began to get very nervous about this and wondered, so that's what it is for? Was he too careless again? He said that means he can use 4 elements at once. She said that if that's true, he's an amazing mage. He asked worriedly, is that really that rare? She said that most people can only use 1 element. She can use water, wind, and earth. He said that he got it. She's simply amazing. She said that she doesn't want to hear praise from someone who can use more elements than her. Tori began to release water from his fingers and said loudly that he didn't mean to offend her. He can use 4 elements, but at a level worse than a beginner. She said that it was still annoying. Magic is something she doesn't want to lose to anyone at. It's all she has. She was about to say something with a sad expression on her face, but her face suddenly changed and she said that she wanted food. She would buy it and come back. He was very surprised by this and asked loudly, "Did she not have enough yet? What is her stomach made of?" After some time, he sat in the same place and thought that 20 minutes had already passed. She will return again with a whole mountain of food, right? Two adventurers came to him and asked with smirks why he was walking with Marin and what they were talking about. He begged her to help him rise in rank. He looked at them with a displeased look and asked, "Is it them again?" The adventurers said that he was even filled with respect for how impudent he was. He would never want to be a loser like him when he was his age. She returned, saw them, and thought that these guys usually hang out in the guild. What are they talking about there? One of them said that he was disappointed in her, however. He respected her actually, but she felt sorry for a slug like him. Although, it doesn't matter. What else could you expect from a loser who has only spent her whole life studying magic? She was very upset by what she heard, and the second adventurer asked if that was too rude. He said that it was still the truth. Besides, she couldn't hear him anyway. The protagonist got up from the bench and said that he should take it back. The adventurer became angry at what he heard and loudly asked what he had just said. Had the pensioner decided to lecture him? He said that he could say whatever he wanted about him, but he couldn't laugh at those who worked hard. The adventurers became even more angry about this, loudly called him a freak, and asked what he had just said. Did he even know what happened to those who contradicted them? Marin came out to them and asked what would happen then. They were surprised when they heard her voice, and she said with a serious expression that she would really like to know more about it. They said with frightened faces that they wouldn't dare. Could they really tell her about it? They ran away very quickly and said loudly that they needed to get out of there. He looked at her and asked if she heard everything. She agreed and said that she had just returned. She thanked him, and he said with a smile that he just said what came to mind. She really is an amazing person. She looked at him and asked why he thought so. He said that she studied magic so hard. He was even jealous. He could definitely not do that. He remembered himself from the past and thought that he could never do that. In his past life, he was constantly making excuses for himself. He never really worked hard to achieve anything. He said that that is why he thinks she is special and a wonderful person. She was surprised by this and asked if he thinks she is wonderful. MC was embarrassed by this and said that he meant her personality. She shouldn't think anything strange. She turned away and said that it doesn't matter. She doesn't like being praised by someone who is better than her. He apologized, and she smiled a little embarrassedly and said that for some reason it didn't sound so offensive. He approached her and said in a worried voice that in any case, his magic was weak, and he couldn't be a mage. She agreed and said that his magic was weak and he was no mage. He got angry because of her words and thought that for some reason when she said that, it irritated him. She handed him a black crystal and said that he should take it. He was confused by this, but took the crystal, and she started to leave and said goodbye to him. He asked her to stop, and she slowed down, turned around and asked what his name was. He asked, "Didn't he say that?" He stated his name and rank, and she turned away and said that she was bad at remembering names. However, she would try to remember his. He said with a confused look that he really hoped so. She looked at him and said that everything was fine because she was interested in him. He was embarrassed by her words, began to get nervous and wondered, did this mean that she suspected him of being a mysterious mage, or did she like that he fed her? She started to leave, said goodbye to him, and he thought that apparently he would have to pick up more quests. After that, Tori came back to the guild. Eliza greeted him and asked how she could help him. She noticed his expression and asked what happened to him. He said with a very sad look that his heart and wallet could not take it. She was worried about this and said loudly that it sounded very terrible. He said that that's why he came for the quest. She said that they almost didn't have it left. She meant 2-star quests. He was surprised by this and asked, however, how did this happen? She said that the guys who laughed at him took it all, probably to harm him. Only the quest with the Kobold lair remained. However, she does not recommend doing it alone. Defeating them is already difficult, but finding the lair is not so easy. He understood this and said that then he can take the 1-star quest. Marin approached them and said that she would take this quest with him. He was surprised when he saw her, and she calmly greeted them. Eliza asked, will she take the quest? Has she recovered from the skirmish with the dragon yet? She calmly said that she is fine now, so she needs to practice. There are no problems if she goes with him, right? She denied it and said that everything is fine. The protagonist asked why she would take the quest with him. He wondered, is she watching him to see if he is the mysterious mage? She said she thought he was in trouble. He shouldn't worry, he'll pay her with food. He thought with a worried expression, great, he's safe. She's just a gluttonous maniac. She pointed to the side and asked, since they were here, maybe they could have some wild boar steak? He asked. Hadn't she just eaten a whole mountain of food recently? She said she had a separate stomach for that. He thought this girl's stomach was the most amazing thing in this world. Eliza approached him and asked when he had the chance to meet her. He asked with a puzzled expression, Was she famous? She was shocked by his question and said that she had told him before. She was the witch from the White Blades, a 6-star archmage. He was very surprised by what he heard and thought, they are now trying to find him by any means necessary, right? After that, MC sat down at the table and asked, by the way, what does she think? How much time will they spend on this quest? Marin sat in front of him, thought for a moment, and said that usually it takes 2 to 3 days. However, today, they only need to find the size of the lair and its location. It seems that they can handle it in a day. He worriedly said that he understood. Glad to hear it. She looked at him and asked if he was nervous. This is still his first exploration quest. He agreed with this, and she said that he can relax because she will be with him. She looks unreliable, but she is a 6-star archmage from the White Blades. He thanked her and thought that this is why he is nervous. He will have to spend the whole day with the one who is hunting him. When night fell, he came to the inn and warned of his return. A girl named Lip greeted him and said that he was probably tired after work. He greeted her and said that she is so nice, always greeting him. She laughed and said that was her job. He thought with a satisfied expression that she was so sweet. She healed the soul. The owner of the Peace Inn, Goliath, noticed him and said that dinner had been ready for a long time. Would he like to eat before he went up? He approached him and said that he probably would, but first he needed to put his things in the room. She ran up to them and with a joyful look asked if he knew that she helped cook. She was great, wasn't she? Her father hugged her and said that she was the best. His joy, he is even ready to cry now. He looked away, noticed that Tori was looking at him and asked what he wanted. Did he want to say something? He refused and said that he just thought she was very sweet. He got angry about this and said, he's not going to become a son-in-law, is he? Otherwise he would beat him. He denied it and thought that this was his base, the Peace Inn, an inn outside the city. It can't be called prosperous, but after all those events with the Earth Dragon, such a quiet place is the most suitable base. He remembered something, handed him a package and said that here's the meat of a mad boar. Goliath thanked him for it and said how pathetic he is. He helps them a lot. His daughter began to smile much more often and he is grateful to him for that. He said with a wide smile that there is no need to thank him. A smile is enough for him as a reward. He said loudly with disbelief that he doesn't even need to try to appease him. He will not give his daughter in marriage. He calmed him down by explaining that he doesn't need it and thought that he likes the local people. The next day, he was practicing with a sword in the yard and said that they can call it a day. Goliath came to him and said that he has been training, as always, since dawn. The protagonist said with a smile that if he has even a grain of talent, he does not want it to go to waste. He laughed at his words and said that this is the decision of a real man. By the way, has he heard the recent rumors? The White Blades are desperately searching for someone. They say that some mysterious magician has appeared. He said that it is hard to believe that this magician really exists. He thought that it was his mistake from the very first day. The rumors have already reached here, right? He said that he heard that even the witch Marin herself admitted in tears that he is stronger than her. What kind of monster appeared? He was very surprised by what he heard and thought, they called him a monster? It was just a rumor that he made her cry, wasn't it? After some time, MC was walking with her into the forest. She called him and asked if he heard the rumor that is currently circulating. Supposedly she cried and admitted defeat. He was worried about this, and she said with a displeased look that she will never forgive this magician. This worried him even more, and he wondered why she was mad at him. She said that at least until he treated her to some fancy sweets. He calmed down a bit and thought that he was glad to hear that. She loved sweets too much. He called her and asked, rumors are great, of course, but maybe they shouldn't relax? She said that there was no problem with that because she had put up a barrier. He looked around, noticed it and said that indeed, now that he looked closely, it was even a little visible. When did she manage to do that? She said that it was a water barrier. The local monsters couldn't break through it. He was surprised by this and said that he didn't think such a thing even existed. She chuckled and asked, she's more amazing, isn't she? He pretended not to understand her and asked, more amazing than who? He thought that still, when he sees this barrier, he is sure that the isolation is much more powerful. This means he is stronger than her. However, comparing his imbalance ability with her skills is not fair. However, he is still curious. How strong are 6-star adventurers? Is she really that strong? She looks like an ordinary sweet girl and has a childish character. No one would have guessed that she's an archmage. He heard a growl and worriedly asked what it was. A monster? Marin denied it and said that it was her stomach. He loudly apologized and said that he should have guessed because it was already lunchtime. She called him an idiot and he said that they were going to eat right now. After that, they sat down to take a break and Tori asked, of course, he is new to this, but is it really okay to eat sweets on the job? She looked at him and said that he does not understand anything. This food, a complex delicacy, the balance is perfectly maintained. The ideal amount of calories, all the necessary vitamins, minerals, iron, and other useful substances. This is not only very healthy, but also very tasty. The place where she bought it produces rations for adventurers. He apologized to her and said that he was just a naive idiot. She was going to continue talking about food, but he asked her not to continue and said that, by the way, he wanted to talk about that rumor. Why are the White Blades so eager to find this mage? Are they so eager to thank him? She said that this is not the only reason. However, they simply cannot ignore the existence of such a powerful mage. He said that. However, he doesn't think he's a bad guy. Is it really such a huge problem? Should they just put him down? She said that it's a very huge problem, and it doesn't matter whether he's good or bad. He has great power, like the heroes of legend. It's dangerous to just leave him alone. The protagonist was surprised by this and thought, does that mean he's on the same level as some heroes? He's really cool, right? However, he doesn't know anything about it. However, if his identity is revealed, he can't be a mysterious mage. In that case, what is he even doing here? She's one of those trying to expose him, right? He asked. Then he definitely needs to be found, right? She said that she would like to meet him in person. This caught his attention and he asked why she did that. She said with displeasure that firstly, there is a rumor that is being spread about him being stronger than her. She should punish him for spreading such rumors. He became worried about this and thought that it wasn't him who spread these rumors. She said that secondly, his mana seemed familiar to her. He didn't understand this and asked what she meant by familiar. Marin said that she didn't understand herself, but maybe she would when she met him. That's why, if he learned something, he should definitely tell her. He agreed and thought that he hoped that she would stop and they would move on to another topic. Later, they reached the Kobold's lair. He watched it from the bushes and said that in terms of strength, they were about the same as goblins. However, they were faster and had better coordination. Therefore, even 3 stars can't defeat them that easily, right? She agreed and said that, however, he forgot to mention that they had a strong sense of smell. He asked if that meant they would notice them now. She said that he shouldn't worry. They weren't in the wind and they couldn't smell them. He said with a little concern that, however, she should watch. They were coming this way. She turned to him and said that she remembered that she had delicious food in her bag. Most likely, they smelled apple pie with cinnamon. He asked in a worried tone what she had done. Marin calmly said that he shouldn't worry because she was here. MC said loudly that it was all because of her. She ran forward and said that he should just watch. She ran out into an open field, was about to use magic, but stumbled and fell to the ground. He called out to her worriedly and thought that she really was just a little girl. He began to draw his sword from its sheath and said loudly that there was no choice. He would be their opponent. He ran to the nearest monster and killed it with one blow. He noticed another kobold who was quickly running towards him and thought that if they attacked head-on, they should be prepared for a warm welcome. The monster stopped, causing his blow to miss, and he wondered in surprise, had he just been tricked? Marin watched this and loudly warned of an attack from behind. The kobold dealt a very strong blow to his back, which surprised him, and he wondered, was that what they were trying to achieve? He turned around abruptly, dealt a strong blow with his sword, and loudly said that they shouldn't be arrogant. He thought the damage wasn't that great. However, their teamwork could be a serious problem. In one-on-one battles, he could handle them even with just a sword. He looked toward the lair and noticed a crowd of monsters heading towards him. He began to get nervous and thought that this was bad. If there were so many of them, however, if he couldn't use spatial magic. Stop. Now was not the time to doubt. He thought he was about to die, but at the last moment, Marin cast the water prison spell and stopped the kobold's attack. She asked him for forgiveness and said that he was injured because of her. He turned to her and said that she shouldn't worry because everything was fine. Could she tell? She did it, right? She agreed, and he said with surprise that 6-star adventurers are really strong. After that, she used the giant water bomb spell and said that it wasn't over yet. She began to concentrate a huge water ball above her head, and he wondered in surprise, what was that? She launched this huge ball into the monster's lair and asked him for forgiveness. She said that they were only supposed to find them today, but she killed them all. All's well that ends well, they won. Tori looked at the destroyed monster's lair and thought that it was incredibly cool. He greatly underestimated the White Blade adventurers. Such strong people were hunting him, and they couldn't defeat the Earth Dragon. However, he killed it with one blow. She said that now it was time for them to go get food. He was surprised by this and asked if she had any food with her after a while. Aisha said it was rare that she was interested in someone. Marin sat in front of her and said that she was surprised herself, but he was really funny and interesting. She said that they should get to know this newbie adventurer better. Aisha thought, looking at the protagonist, the rookie adventurer Tori. The locals in the guild also nicknamed him the retired adventurer. She'd been researching him for the past few days. He was one of the few people who had sparked her interest. She had no doubt about her comrade's choice, but considering the recent arrival of a magic mage as the leader of the White Blades, she had to keep an eye on him. Incidentally, how wonderful that she was keeping an eye on him, but he had no idea. The girl smiled contentedly, turning away from the protagonist. He looked at her and wondered why the beautiful knight he'd recently rescued was stalking him, and who had taught her to stalk him like that. His goal in this world was to become the strongest mysterious mage, and then revel in the rumors spread about him over a beer. But on the very first day, he'd stood out far more than he'd planned. But he wasn't about to give up on his idea. He'll be careful and won't stand out. At least that's what he planned. So why is someone following him? And why is she so bad at it? There's no way she'll figure out who he is. Turning away from the girl, he reassured himself. It's impossible. He'd changed his voice when he saved them. He'd even used spatial magic to conceal his features. Basically, they shouldn't have seen anything that would lead them to certain conclusions. So far, of course, it didn't look like she was planning anything, and he still hadn't figured out what she wanted. He needed to try not to arouse suspicion for now. Lost in his thoughts, he hadn't even noticed how he'd met Marin. When she asked him in surprise what he was doing here, the protagonist flinched in surprise and exclaimed, "Miss Marin." The girl let out a disgruntled sigh and asked him irritably, "Where did Miss Marin come from?" "He should stop it." MC apologized to her, thinking she'd gone on a quest with him again for the treats. His reputation had been completely ruined. Now everyone thought he was using her. Everyone was saying he was always hanging out with Marin, and they'd heard he'd bribed her. Of course, it was dangerous since she could expose him, so he didn't want to get too close to her. Marin pointed out that they were friends, so he shouldn't call her mistress. He apologized to her again. She'd become his first friend in this world, and he didn't want to push her away. The girl asked him if he was free today. The protagonist was surprised. Why was she asking? But yes, he was free today. Marin came closer, touched his shoulder, and said conspiratorially, "Then, does he want to do something bad?" The protagonist hadn't expected such a question from her, so he looked at her in confusion. Aisha nearly screamed in surprise at her ally's words. Her fertile imagination immediately conjured up a picture of Marin, covered in honey, asking him if he could taste it. What did she mean? In what way? Something bad? Offering him? The girl decided this wasn't the time to just watch. She had to stop her, lest she make a mistake. The MC turned to Marin and said, just in case he'll clarify what she meant. Aisha thought in surprise. He asked her directly? Marin looked at him in confusion and said, "Isn't it clear? Today, they're going to eat a super sweet calorie bomb. It's a real calorie explosion for his body. There are so many calories, it's better not to move at all." Aisha thought confusedly, so that's what she was talking about? She needs to work on her thoughts. The protagonist licked his lips and said, he knew it would happen. Of course he'd go with her. They arrived at the delicatessen and ordered dessert. Marin ordered a large portion, and looking at the protagonist's small bowl, she asked him in surprise, wouldn't he like a sweet, calorie-heavy dessert? He replied that a small portion would be enough. Aisha was sitting at the next table, listening attentively to their conversation. Suddenly, Marin looked up from her dessert and told him that Saran had returned. MC didn't understand who she was talking about at first, but then asked her if she was the vice leader of the White Blades, right? The girl answered that she was. She had finally recovered from her encounter with the dragon. Tori commented that he was glad to hear it. Marin added that the White Blades would soon be back in action. He exclaimed, "Isn't that great?" The protagonist thought, finally, at least a little peace. The girl sadly noted, but that meant she wouldn't be able to spend as much time with him. The protagonist was surprised. Did she value him so much as a friend? After a moment of silence, Marin turned to him and sheepishly asked if she could try his dessert. MC replied that he was fine with it, but for some reason, he felt disappointed. He pushed his dessert toward her and said, "Here, she can finish the rest." The girl hesitantly asked, "Really? Then let him try it too." She scooped up a spoonful of dessert and tried to feed it to him. The protagonist indignantly told her to stop. He could do it himself. Marin began to hurry him. "Come on, let him try it already." The protagonist sighed and, declaring that he would do it now, opened his mouth. At that moment, Win, a member of the White Blades and a fire fairy, flew up to them, pointed her finger at MC and angrily shouted at him, "Who the hell is he? Get away from her teacher right now." The protagonist stared at her in surprise. Marin told her to calm down. Tori was her friend. The fire fairy remarked irritably, she didn't understand anything. He was just using her. The girl turned to the protagonist and asked him if he was using her. Tori told her that he wasn't. Marin looked at her student and said, "Yes." He said no. Win exclaimed, did she think he'd answer yes? She couldn't believe her teacher had trusted him so easily. Did she even realize how sweet and innocent she was? The protagonist thought, yeah, right. Everyone here is talking about her, like she's Marin's crazy student. Win decided to play a trick, telling Marin they had an urgent meeting and needed to get back. Marin wanted to object, but Tori told her not to worry about him. Sure, he'd be lonely, but he'd definitely get over it. The girl spoke sheepishly. She hadn't finished eating yet. He chuckled and said she should forgive him. It was his own fault for thinking about something else. It was her, after all. Marin told him she would miss him. MC thanked her, puzzled, and remarked that it sounded like she was saying it on purpose, which only made things worse. After saying goodbye to the girl, he went about his business. On the way, he thought that if such big, important people continued to pursue him, he wouldn't be able to be a mysterious mage. He'd only managed to be a mysterious hero on his first day, and now he was in trouble. At this rate, he'd achieve nothing. Noticing Aisha, he noted with annoyance that she was also following him. At that moment, a guy appeared in front of him, and his whole appearance boded ill. He asked the protagonist, isn't he Tori, the retired newbie? The protagonist, preparing for battle, irritably remarked, who is he? It's rude not to introduce himself, since he already knows his name. The guy drew his sword and said, it's his fault. The protagonist, looking at the guy, wondered what that strange sensation was. Was that mana? The opponent raised his sword above his head, ready to strike, and said, since he's somehow interested in her, he probably shouldn't worry and should just go all out. The protagonist wondered in surprise, wondering how he was going to attack from such a distance. The guy lunged at him and said, it's too late, of course, but let him introduce himself. He was about to strike at MC, But at that moment, Aisha blocked his attack, shielding the protagonist with her body. The guy exclaimed in bewilderment. What? The girl, blocking her body from the blow, asked him if she should introduce herself too. Removing her hand from her face, she proudly declared that she was the leader of the White Blades and told him her name. The guy asked her, confused, why she was protecting him. She was surprised. Why? What a stupid question. Let him think for himself. Does he really need a reason to protect someone? The guy asked her, perplexed. Didn't she cut anything? At that moment, almost all of his clothes fell off, which surprised him greatly. Aisha sheathed her sword and said, she's asking for his forgiveness. Perhaps a real lady shouldn't have done that. The guy grabbed his clothes as they slipped off and cursed. He doesn't stand a chance against the White Blade. He ran and shouted at them that he would remember this. Aisha answered, well, she definitely won't forget a man running away in his underwear. But who was he anyway? This worried her a little. The protagonist, catching her attention, apologized and clarified. She's Aisha from the White Blade, right? He introduced himself to her and thanked her for saving him. The girl said, so he's that Tory. She'd heard about him. Their Marin spends a lot of time with him. She added, just in case she was there completely by chance. Did he realize that? It was just a coincidence. Just think, she saved Marin's friend. What a happy and random coincidence. MC smiled and told her that it was true, but privately, he thought she was a terrible liar. Aisha told him that when she saw him closer, she wondered if they'd met before. The protagonist cautiously answered, no, she was confused. He decided to change the subject and exclaimed, she was curious about this person, right? The girl suddenly caught herself and said, yeah, right. She needs to report this to the guild immediately. Okay, she needs to go. She looked at the protagonist and added, they'll meet again. She's sure of it. The girl left, and MC wondered, why did she even follow him? But she's so cool. He's pathetic. Even with his cheating skills, he wouldn't have been able to react to that guy's attack, and he couldn't do anything on the quest either. In this world, life can end at any moment. If he hadn't been saved, he would have been dead twice over. He can't even defend himself. What the hell is he thinking? He won't become the strongest this way. His self-criticism was through the roof. He was a disgrace. He returned to the inn. The next day, he left thinking he needed to get his act together. He had to work even harder, and to do that, he had to do something. Goliath and Lip wished him a good day and asked him to be careful. When the protagonist arrived at the guild and turned to Eliza, she said in surprise, the exam to get the 3rd star? Had she heard him correctly? He told her that it was. He wanted to get the 3rd star as quickly as possible. The administrator replied that she was sorry to disappoint him, but promotion to 3 stars was a group escort quest. He couldn't do it alone. The protagonist hadn't expected that. The girl continued that, to be honest, they generally didn't recommend working alone. Therefore, solo tasks were limited, and that's why the promotion quest had to be completed in a group. They were primarily testing his teamwork skills. The MC replied that he understood everything, but he was working alone, so what should he do? Eliza offered him the option of teaming up with another solo player, or temporarily joining another group. The protagonist turned to the other adventurers and loudly declared, I'm sorry, is there anyone here who can help him with the promotion quest? Outrage erupted from all sides. Who would team up with such a moron? This was his punishment for getting close to Marin. Let him go and complain to the White Blades. Maybe they'll help him. One of the adventurers asked, perplexed, why Marin didn't want to be friends with him. Tori thought they were all jealous of his friendship with Marin. He turned to Eliza and asked her, so, what should he do now? The girl sheepishly answered, wishing she knew. Should he wait until new people showed up who hadn't heard of him yet? The protagonist wondered, how long would it take? Months? At that moment, he heard Aisha's voice. Maybe he should go with them then? The protagonist was surprised to see the entire White Fang team standing before him. Marin greeted him. Wynn glared at him. Saren looked at him indifferently, and Liliton smiled broadly. Aisha continued, or won't they make good comrades? Tori wondered, puzzled. Why are they here again? Why does he always have to work with them? Meanwhile, Ekon said, yeah, he's made a huge mistake. He told him to watch, not attack the protagonist. And since he'd already started the fight, he should have dragged his victim here. Isn't that what he taught him, remember? The boy, timid before his boss, answered the man in a trembling voice. He's so sorry. He won't let him down again. He swears it. Ekans chopped off his head without further ado, saying, he doesn't give such thick-headed idiots a second chance. He ordered his subordinate to remove him from his sight, and also, he was to spread even more rumors about this newcomer. It would be easier for them if the protagonist couldn't unite with the others. The subordinate answered him respectfully, as his master wishes, of course, the boy remarked. After all, his master enjoys mocking the weak, Ekans remarked irritably. Should I remind him who made him so insatiable with women? The subordinate became embarrassed and said, he hasn't forgotten it. He remembers it all perfectly. The man answered him menacingly, then let him do as he was told. Let him slowly but surely corner Tori. Finally, someone they could use had appeared. If everything was done correctly, then he, the king of the snakes from the snake den, would finally be able to have fun with those beauties. Meanwhile, the protagonist, after Aisha's question about competent comrades, thought, White Blades will be his companions on a quest? That was one of the worst options. He tried to object, letting them listen to him. He couldn't waste their time. Aisha smiled and told him not to worry about it. They didn't mind. There were rumors circulating about him, right? These rumors concerned them too, and she planned to dispel them. Tori, confused, asked her what she was saying. The girl looked at him carefully and said that she didn't trust him, a retired newbie. The adventurers present greeted her words with delight. They began to shout, Well done, the leader of the White Blades hasn't let them down after all. Let her not give him a second to rest. Now, if only he wouldn't run away. The protagonist cursed and thought with frustration that he had no choice but to go with them. A little later, Eliza appeared in the courtyard before them, and turning to the group's leader, exclaimed that she was the daughter of an aristocrat from the city of Bori, Eliza, a fugitive who had to hide her identity. What would become of her? Aisha replied that everything would be fine. They would risk their lives for her. Win remarked, yes, that's right. They would protect her. Eliza grabbed the group's leader by the hands and, thanking her, asked, would they be able to escort her to the neighboring city? Aisha solemnly replied, it would be an honor for them. Win agreed with her leader. The protagonist didn't understand what was going on. He said, since they'd finished their game, maybe they'd be heading out? Aisha noticed, wow, how serious he was. Eliza indignantly responded, they're not joking around here. Their task is to escort an important person from Boria to the neighboring city. This is their exam scenario, and she's not joking around here. And the examiner is playing the important person. Aisha laughed and said, so that's it? And she thought they were joking. She's completely serious, right? The girl turned to the MC and told him they'd be working together for 4 days. She hoped for a fruitful collaboration. The protagonist tried to hide his annoyance and, with a forced smile, thanked her for agreeing. She looked at him intently and said, no need to worry so much. They're here to help him, and they'll follow his instructions during the mission. He said he would try his best. Did he wonder if she wanted to watch him? Tori suggested the team discuss a plan of action. He told them that, as Miss Eliza's bodyguards, they would surround her carriage. The main striking forces in the event of a battle would be Marin and Lilitan. The girls agreed without hesitation. He continued, Suren, reconnaissance of what awaited them ahead. The girl showed him a piece of paper with a single word written on it, accepted. The protagonist, surprised, wondered if she was answering in writing. He'd heard she didn't like men. He assigned Win the responsibility of covering their back. The girl objected, not wanting to be separated from her teacher. Tori replied that her teacher's life depended on her covering the rearguard. Win, astonished, clarified, her teacher's life depends on her? That was so cool. He turned to Aisha and told her that they would be in the carriage together and would take turns leading the horses. The group leader answered him as he wished. The protagonist continued regarding the route. The shortest route was along the eastern mountain path, but the monsters there were stronger. Furthermore, due to the recent rain, there was a risk of avalanches. Safety was their top priority, so they would take the western route. The local monsters were weaker, and there weren't as many bandits. Aisha remarked, it's a good plan. She understood everything. Eliza, thoughtfully agreeing with them, wrote something in her notebook. He wondered if he was being evaluated. The same thing was happening here. He immediately remembered the times when he tried to please everyone at work. Tori said, okay, it's time for them to get going. Marin asked him to grab something tasty. He told her he would do it later. Win exclaimed indignantly, let him accept her teacher's gratitude, he thought, the thought of what lay ahead terrifying him. After a while on the road, Marin told him he'd done well. The protagonist asked her what she was talking about. She continued, he'd given the instructions well and collected the information perfectly. He wondered, surprised, isn't that normal? Marin told him no. She would never have believed that a lone rookie could have handled his first exam so easily. The protagonist thanked her sheepishly. He supposed his social skills, developed on the job, had come in handy. Marin suddenly apologized to him. Tori looked puzzled. Why? What was she apologizing for? The girl said that because she was always hanging around him, his reputation was now worthless. He laughed and said, oh, that's what she meant. It's not her fault. He's the one who should be worried about ruining her reputation. At that moment, Win shouted at him that he was a monster. He shouldn't try to seduce her teacher. The protagonist, surprised, told her that he hadn't intended to do that. The question is, why isn't she in the rearguard? The girl said she's watching with her magical senses, so everything's fine. He exclaimed in bewilderment. Magic senses? Win was surprised. He didn't even know anything about him. Tori apologized to her and noted that he wasn't very good at magic. Marin explained to him, simply put, it was simple magic that reveals magical power. She thought he could master it. Marin added that she would give him a couple of lessons. The protagonist exclaimed in surprise, was she serious? Win screamed, no. Her connection with her teacher was crumbling before her eyes. MC thought this girl was scaring him. Lilitan told her to return to her post and threw her back. Win soared into the air and shouted to her ally that she would remember this. The protagonist told Lilitan that she had amazing strength. She thanked him for the praise and remarked, but he was strong too, right? He fearfully told her that he wasn't. The girl laughed and said, her instincts tell her so. Tori said, he's an ordinary 2-star swordsman. She exclaimed, don't let him be modest. Her instincts are always right. The girl hugged him and added, but never mind, she likes strong men. The protagonist, panicking, broke free from her embrace. She asked him if they could spend the night together. The protagonist, frightened, said, what do you mean? Just the two of them. At that moment, Marin turned to the girl and asked her not to take Tori. She was the one who had scheduled him for the magic lesson in the first place. Lilitan apologized to her for her rudeness. Marin sadly remarked, it's MC who needs to apologize. Has he already forgotten their promise? The protagonist, astonished, said, he didn't even answer. And anyway, why was she sulking? Marin countered, that's not true. She's not sulking. For a second, he thought he was going crazy from all this nonsense. After a while, He told the girls they could take a short break. They were moving at a good speed. Aisha asked for his attention for a moment, telling him she'd noticed something. When they were fighting the monsters along the way, he wasn't using a cloak. He asked her in surprise. What is it? The girl replied. She had thought so. He was a beginner, so it wasn't surprising. A cloak is a technique that allows one to strengthen one's body with mana. It's not a particularly difficult skill. Anyone with mana can learn it. Depending on a person's mana level, their physical strength will increase. The protagonist answered, I see. He thought, so that feeling of discomfort when meeting the guy, that was what they called a cloak. Aisha continued. Since she was here, should I teach him this skill? Tori happily accepted her offer. He thought he hadn't expected such friendliness from her. The girl scheduled his training for after lunch. When the time came, he took the sword and asked her, so what next? Aisha said that before training him, she'd like to spar with him to get to know him better. The protagonist was surprised, and what did that have to do with sparring? The leader explained that when swordsmen cross swords, they get to know each other better. For them, it will be like a dialogue, understandable only to them. Tori thought in amazement how cool that sounded. Were swordsmen always this cool? Lilliton asked them, what's going on here? Finally, something interesting. Eliza said, the main thing is that they can finish the exam later. Wynne exclaimed, I don't want her to leave a puddle of blood. Aisha told her. What kind of nightmare is she talking about? MC wondered how many people had gathered. The leader continued. So there's a task for Marin. The rest of you should give the go-ahead for sparring. She asked the protagonist. Is he ready? He told her he was ready, thinking he couldn't refuse. Marin declared that since both sides were ready, they could begin. Tori thought the difference in their abilities was obvious. But this was a rare opportunity to see what his training had done. He could take at least one blow. Aisha lunged at him, and he didn't even have time to parry her blow. She exclaimed, did he relax because the sword wasn't real? She told him at the guild. She didn't trust him yet. Let him get into a fighting stance and not worry. They had plenty of healing potions with them. Tori thought warily. He couldn't do it. He wouldn't land a single blow. Lilliton, watching the scene, yawned and remarked that the boy didn't stand a chance. He'd broken so easily. Had her intuition been right? Wynne remarked, he can't even hold a sword properly against Aisha. What a whiner he is. The protagonist, hearing their words, mentally asked them to shut up. Although they could say whatever they wanted. He was an ordinary person with only what God had given him. But he didn't want to accidentally harm Aisha. He'd simply surrender to her, and they'd return to the exam. Suddenly, he heard Marin say in a determined voice, no, Tori isn't a whiner. Aisha was very strong, and he wouldn't be able to defeat her, but she would be rooting for him. She wished him luck. The protagonist thought it would help. What was the point in trying? But he wouldn't dare just run away without even trying. He activated his power, and Aisha exclaimed in amazement. He has mana? She had no idea how he'd appeared next to her. She only managed to raise her sword to block his blow, but it didn't save her. The protagonist struck her, breaking her weapon. The leader was perplexed. Lilliton exclaimed in delight, wow, he actually struck. Marin said in surprise, this is simply astounding, amazing. Wynne was indignant, calling him dirty names. Aisha, astonished, told him he was using the cloak. The protagonist spoke in bewilderment. He really was using the cloak? So that's why he felt this surge of power. She couldn't believe her ears. What was he saying? So he was using it unconsciously? He answered her thoughtfully. He didn't quite understand it all, but it was as if he were in a trance. Then he smiled and said, it's because Marin wished him luck. Aisha looked at him, perplexed. Marin, surprised, said, in other words, it's all thanks to her. Then he owes her that calorie bomb. The protagonist was indignant. What? How much sugar could fit in her tiny body? She looked at him in bewilderment and asked, is he serious now? Is that it? At that moment, Aisha told him, okay, she was scolding him for relaxing, but she was the only one who relaxed. She didn't know that her shirt was unbuttoned because of the blow and all her charms were on display. Lilliton said she agreed. Their leader was too relaxed. Wynne, almost in tears, drew the leader's attention to her appearance. Aisha looked at her outfit and realized it was cut in places. The girl covered herself with her hands and indignantly asked the protagonist, how could he have stooped so low? The MC, embarrassed, began to justify herself to her. It wasn't him. It was an accident. The leader remarked, good, she heard him. The protagonist added that she should hurry up and get dressed. Besides, her wooden sword was broken. Aisha told him not to worry, she had a spare. Tori spoke apprehensively. Was he imagining things? Or was she trying to kill him? Marin said, he likes appetizing curves. He shouted, please stop making jokes at such a time. After some time on the road, the protagonist noticed it was getting dark. He suggests setting up camp here for the night. Lilliton said, great, they'll drink all night. He mocked her sarcastically. Sure, but another time. She grumbled, he sure knows how to ruin everything. The protagonist said, no, it's not that. It's just that they have to protect precious Lady Eliza, right? The girl told him affectionately. They didn't know he thought of her that way. Aisha said, ah, so that's it. The MC exclaimed indignantly. But this is the exam script. The leader said, is it really just the script? Considering how he decided to expose her during their sparring, he might have ulterior motives. He realized she harbored a grudge. The protagonist exclaimed. He told her it was an accident. MC lit a fire, creating flames with his finger, and muttered dejectedly, Why is she so angry? Although, unsurprisingly, he would have reacted the same way if he were a girl whose body had been practically exposed. He thought, once he fended off the white blades, it would be easier for him to play the role of a mysterious spatial mage. But what if that wasn't enough? At that moment, he heard someone screaming, and he wondered with fear what it was. Were bandits attacking or monsters? Running toward the sound, he was surprised to see the girls taking a bath. Noticing him, they burst into laughter. He said, embarrassed, he thought they were being attacked. Marin asked him angrily, did he come to check? The protagonist replied that he had, but only with a purpose. Were they being attacked? There was such a scream. Lillitan laughed, apologized, and explained that when she grabbed Aisha, she squealed of unknown cause. The leader indignantly replied, don't blame her for that. It's her fault. Lillitan said, but she couldn't help herself. She just wanted to fool around. How could he blame her when there was so much temptation around? Aisha responded indignantly, is that an excuse for grabbing her so suddenly? He asked the girls, why isn't Saran with them? At that moment, an arrow from a bow struck a tree, bearing a note saying she'd wash herself later, not to worry about it. Aisha approached him and said that today, after his training with Marin, she wanted to speak with him alone. He had no right to refuse. He agreed, thinking to himself, I understand, he only has a couple of hours to live. The protagonist returned to the fire, and after a while, the leader arrived. He looked at her. She looked completely different now than in her gear, and he thought he could see her beauty even more clearly now. Aisha, noticing his gaze, asked him if there was something on her face. He became embarrassed and muttered, no, nothing, while mentally scolding himself. Am I an idiot? Why was he even thinking about this? The girl said, it's time to put an end to this. She wanted to apologize to him for calling him a newbie and behaving inappropriately. The leader bowed her head politely to him and added that she truly was sorry. She hadn't thought of him as a bad person from the start. She just needed to be sure. Besides, when Marin spoke to him, she seemed very happy. The protagonist couldn't believe his ears. She was telling him all this? Was it all true? The girl expressed hope that he wouldn't hold a grudge. As the leader of the White Blades, she should have gotten to know him better. After all, Marin spent a lot of time with him, and she had to protect her. After all, the most important thing to her was protecting her comrades. MC thought in surprise. Now it all made sense to him. That's why she pretended to dislike him. He said that now he understood why her comrades respected her. Aisha laughed and told him that it was an honor for her to receive his praise. She concluded that, in short, she had done wrong, so she apologized to him once again. The protagonist muttered, no need, he understands everything, given his reputation in the guild. Aisha had told him, but she'd also acted that way because she wanted to protect him. If she'd been friendly toward him, his reputation could have gotten even worse. It seemed they had far more influence than they thought. But don't let him misunderstand. She'd never forgive him for seeing her naked twice. Did he understand that? The protagonist uttered a resigned voice. Well, he already said it was a pure accident, she countered. Even so, she won't forgive him. The protagonist expressed his sincere regret. After a while, when all the girls had fallen asleep, MC, looking at the fire, thought, so there's still time while he's on duty. He needs to try something. Thanks to the magical sense Marin had taught him, he had an idea. He moved a safe distance from the camp and activated his detection skill. At that moment, he saw all living creatures, including his sleeping allies, who were currently in the forest. He thought with delight, so that's it? He can clearly see everything around him. Spatial detection magic is much more effective than regular magical sense. Magic sense allows you to sense mana, but detection shows him everything. Suddenly, he realized he was spying on sleeping girls. Let them forgive him. He didn't mean to. He needed to be more careful when using this spell. Grasping the hilt of his weapon, he decided that now wasn't the time to think about it. There was something more important. He looked at the monsters he had detected and declared, now I need to get rid of them. Of course, it wasn't them, but he harbored a grudge against the kobolds. The protagonist told the monsters not to hold a grudge, but he was using the cloak for practice. Having attacked the monster, the protagonist almost immediately realized he'd dealt a weak blow, but he'd cut it to pieces. Behold the power of the shroud. The remaining monsters scattered in different directions. MC realized they'd split up to attack him from two different sides. They were too smart for monsters, he exclaimed, but going head to head with it, that was the biggest mistake. This was a very stupid plan. Having destroyed the second monster, he exclaimed in surprise, what's this, a third one running away? Tori rushed after him, his speed growing, all thanks to the shroud. Catching up with his opponent, he shouted that he wouldn't run away from him. Raising his hand to strike, he easily severed his head. Having finished the monster, the protagonist looked around and said, it's even funny how simple it was. This feeling is just what you need. He wanted to shout at the top of his lungs about how wonderful he was, but no one saw his progress. Feeling the monsters approaching behind him, the protagonist muttered, are their comrades still here? Good, he'll play some more. He glanced around and was simply astonished by the number of enemies. Why were there so many? Where did they all even come from? Why were there even more of them here than in the lair? Even with the cloak, he couldn't kill that many. His thoughts raced. What should he do? Use spatial magic? But if he used it near the white blades, he might be discovered. At that moment, he heard Aisha's voice. Why was he acting so dishonestly? Turning around, he saw all his allies. Lillitan said with a smile, he's having a party here, and he didn't even invite us. MC gasped in amazement. Are they awake? Aisha suggested they discuss it later. Right now, they needed to get rid of the so-called guests. Lillitan braced herself for battle and exclaimed, "So, she's announcing the start of the party." She fearlessly charged into the thick of the enemy. Come to think of it, they haven't had any fun in a while. Monsters began to approach her stealthily, but she dispatched them in no time, without even looking back. Saran said, "If you want to throw a party, you need to get some alcohol." The girl instantly activated the Great Cycle and rushed at the monsters, crushing them left and right. Marin said, "If there's no alcohol, maybe they can pick it up along the way." She also attacked the enemy with all her might. Win, seeing her speed and power, exclaimed, "Wow, then let them pour her one too." With that, the girl joined her partners and activated the fire cannon. Finishing the fight, she yawned and said, "The perfect thing to wake up." Aisha called out to her and said there was no need for that. Win looked at the leader in surprise. She added, "They've overdone it already. Let them see for themselves. The party's over." The girls surveyed the battlefield. Fallen monsters lay everywhere. The protagonist was in a state of shock. It was simply astounding. They defeated an entire horde in an instant, against whom he hadn't stood a chance. This was the guild's strongest group, the White Blades. He sheepishly thanked them for saving him. Aisha replied, "No need for gratitude. She hadn't done anything at all." Let him better tell why he didn't call them earlier. She understood. He'd mastered the cloak easily, but fighting such a crowd alone was reckless. The protagonist apologized to the girls and added that he was very sorry. Aisha admonished him to think about his behavior, but she was glad he was safe. The girl looked at him earnestly and added, "He's their friend now, and he can rely on them. Does he understand that?" These words touched him deeply. He addressed her by name and promised her that it wouldn't happen again. She told him, "Okay, they'll always have his back." MC offered to show her something. He added that he didn't know how serious it was, but when he used his magical sense, he noticed a suspicious figure. He didn't tell her that he discovered it using another skill, detection. Aisha asked him curiously, "A suspicious figure?" She couldn't say anything about it. She hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary. Tori noticed that as soon as he killed a couple of kobolds, it was gone, and he simply decided to warn her about it. She looked surprised. "Is that so? Maybe an adventurer or a merchant was passing by? This road is often used, but it could have been a bandit." The girl told him that if he suspected anything again, he should call her immediately. He smiled and thanked her for listening to him. Aisha said, "No, it's important to voice your suspicions." The girl winked at him and jokingly remarked, "But if anything happens, don't let him peek into the tent, okay?" He felt embarrassed and promised her this. He thought to himself, "Oh, there it is. The guilt for discovering it has fallen upon him again." Aisha looked at him suspiciously and exclaimed, "What kind of reaction is that? So he tried to do that?" The protagonist began to justify himself, but no, she misunderstood him. She angrily told him not to make up excuses for himself. A subordinate watched all this from a high mountain. He said, "It seems Tori is much closer to them than they thought. This needs to be reported immediately."